you ever felt a power within you that the world seems determined to drain? A quiet strength that you are taught to spill, to waste, to give away for a moment of fleeting pleasure. You are told this is normal, healthy, even necessary. You are shown it endlessly in media, celebrated in conversation, and prescribed as the cure for tension. But what if this narrative is the most sophisticated prison ever constructed? What if the constant push for release is not about your well-being, but about keeping you weak, predictable, and controllable? This is the secret that society guards with ferocious jealousy. For a population of self-governed men would cause the entire structure to collapse. The man who learns to contain his own essence, who refuses to squander his creative force, becomes something the system cannot classify. He is an anomaly, a variable in an equation that requires constants. He is not a monk, nor is he a hedonist. He is a master of his own internal fire, and that makes him absolutely dangerous to the status quo. This is not about celibacy in the way religion sells it, as a form of sterile denial born from shame. This is about a redirection of a primal power, a conscious choice born from self-respect. It is an act of supreme self-possession in a world that demands you constantly give yourself away, piece by piece, until nothing remains. When you retain this vital energy, you are not simply holding back a fluid. You are accumulating a charge, a kind of psychic voltage. Carl Jung spoke of psychic energy, the very fuel of the psyche, the engine of all human accomplishment. Every act, thought, and emotion consumes it. Society has built a machine that runs on the squandered psychic energy of men. It is a vast, vampiric system. It feeds on your impulses, your lack of control, your desperate need for validation through conquest and release. It keeps you on a leash made of your own desires, a leash you willingly place around your own neck. This draining is not just physical. It occurs when you argue pointlessly online, when you scroll for hours seeking a dopamine hit, when you gossip, when you complain. But the sexual release is the primary valve, the main tap through which your core power is siphoned away. Look at the results of this mass draining. Look at the statistics they publish, but hope you never connect. They will tell you that nearly 1 in every 10 men reports experiencing daily feelings of depression or anxiety. They label it a chemical imbalance, a mental health crisis. They offer pills and therapy to manage the symptoms, but they will never, ever point to the cause. A life of constant energetic expenditure without replenishment. They medicate the wound, but will never admit that the knife is the culture itself, a culture that demands you remain empty. The man who cuts this leash, who turns off this tap and allows this internal energy to build, starts to notice changes. His eyes carry a different weight. His voice has a new resonance. His presence in a room becomes palpable, even without a single word being spoken. He radiates a stillness that others find deeply unsettling. This stillness is not emptiness. It is a contained force, like the quiet of a pressurized vessel. While others are loud, reactive, and desperate for attention, he is composed. His silence speaks with more authority than their shouts. This is the first reason they fear him. He cannot be easily provoked. He has exited the emotional theater where most people live their lives. He sees it for the stage play it is. The small insults, the provocations, the games of ego, they no longer find purchase on him. They are like arrows shot at a wall of solid granite. He observes the chaos from a point of inner stability. This makes him unpredictable. The system of control depends on predictable reactions. It is a simple machine of stimulus and response. It knows how to handle the angry man, the lustful man, the insecure man. It has scripts for all of them, buttons to push that guarantee a certain outcome. But it has no script for the man who does not react. It pushes the button for lust, and he remains still. It pushes the button for anger, and he observes. It pushes the button for insecurity, and he meets it with a calm gaze. The machine shorts out. The controllers are left holding wires that connect to nothing. He becomes a mirror. His self-control shows the utter lack of control in others. His presence forces them to confront their own inner noise, their own weaknesses, their own enslavement to impulse. And people hate seeing their own cages reflected back at them with such clarity. It feels like an accusation. Think of the modern world as a marketplace of distraction. Its survival depends on your inner emptiness. It wants you consuming, chasing, desiring, in a state of perpetual hunger. It needs you to feel an emptiness inside that can only be filled by the next product, the next experience, the next temporary high. The act of release is the ultimate model for this consumerism. It is the blueprint for the entire economic structure. It offers a momentary peak, followed by a crash, creating a biological cycle of dependency. You are trained to seek the peak again and again, forever draining your own reserves and needing an external fix. The man who retains breaks this cycle. He discovers he is not empty at all. He finds a source of power within himself that is not dependent on anything external. He ceases to be a good consumer because he is no longer perpetually hungry. His energy is not directed outward in a desperate search, but inward for building. This is a direct threat to a system built on manufactured need. He doesn't need the constant validation from fleeting encounters. He doesn't need the endless stream of digital novelties. He is building something more substantial inside himself, a core of unwavering self-possession. This man is an economic terrorist to a consumer society. Friedrich Nietzsche spoke of the will to power, not as domination over others, but as the far more difficult task of mastery over oneself. Retaining your seed is the ultimate physical expression of this principle. It is a daily, hourly declaration that you are the sole authority over your own body and its energies. This authority terrifies a world that wants to be your authority. It wants to tell you what to desire, when to desire it, and how to spend your energy in that pursuit. The sovereign man, the man who owns himself, is an outlaw in this kind of society. He has opted out of the primary control mechanism. Furthermore, this contained energy must go somewhere. Energy cannot be destroyed, it can only be altered. It does not stagnate, it gets refined. It moves up from the purely physical and begins to fuel the mind, the will, the spirit. This is what ancient traditions, from Taoism to yogic practices, understood with perfect clarity. This is not mysticism, it is psychological alchemy. The raw primal energy of creation, the lead of base desire, is altered into the gold of higher consciousness. It is used to fuel ambition, creativity, mental clarity, and an unbreakable will. You stop thinking about fleeting conquests and start thinking about building legacies. The man operating on this higher fuel is a competitor on a completely different level. While others are running on the fumes of their last dopamine hit, drained and distracted, he possesses a relentless focus. He can work longer, think with more clarity, and endure hardships that would break the ordinary man. He is no longer playing the same game as everyone else. He has effectively left the board and is now observing from above. He is not seeking approval. He does not fear rejection in the same way because his sense of self is not derived from the fleeting acceptance of others. It comes from an internal, unshakable source. This makes him immune to the most common forms of manipulation. Seduction, the promise of pleasure, the threat of withholding it, these are the primary levers used to control men. When you do not need what they are offering, when your own inner state is more valuable, these levers lose their power. You begin to see the strings. It is like seeing the code behind the simulation. You see how people use desire to pull others like puppets. You watch the desperate dance of attraction and validation, and you see it for what it is. A game for those who have not yet mastered themselves. This is deeply unsettling for those who rely on these games. A woman who has built her power on her ability to enchant and control men suddenly finds her power useless against him. A system that sells pleasure finds it has no product he wants to buy. A boss that uses intimidation finds his threats have no effect. He becomes a ghost in their machine. He lives and works among them, but he is not of them. His motivations are different. His power source is internal. They can sense his power, but they cannot understand its source, and this creates a primal fear. It is the fear of the unknown, of an opponent whose strategy you cannot comprehend. Let's be clear. This path is not easy. It is a war against your own programming, against millions of years of biological impulse. It is a battle against the herd morality, as Nietzsche would call it, that celebrates weakness and calls it being relaxed or human. The herd fears the one who walks his own path. Every aspect of culture is designed to make you spill your energy. The statistics are staggering, hidden in corporate reports. The largest pornography websites receive more traffic than most mainstream social media platforms, serving tens of billions of videos a year. It is the most efficient energy harvesting system ever designed. This is not an accident. It is a design. A constant, on-demand tap to drain any accumulated power to ensure no man ever reaches a state of inner charge. It is presented as freedom of choice, but it is the most effective form of mass conditioning imaginable, creating a population of docile, distracted, and perpetually wanting men. You will be called strange, repressed, rigid. People will try to tempt you, to provoke a reaction, just to prove to themselves that you are still one of them, still controllable. They will offer you poisoned pleasure to bring you back down to their level. Your discipline is a silent judgment on their lack of it. But here is what they fail to understand. The man who retains is not without passion. In fact, his passion becomes 1,000 times more potent because it is not diluted and wasted daily. It is a contained fire, not a scattered spark. It is a forge, not a bonfire. When he does choose to share that energy, it is a conscious act, not a compulsive reaction. It is a gift of power, not a spill of weakness. This level of intention in intimacy is something the world has almost completely forgotten, replacing it with a frantic, almost mechanical friction. This is also why he becomes a threat to mediocre relationships. He will not tolerate energetic vampirism. He cannot. His sensitivity to his own energy becomes so acute that he can feel when it is being drained. He will not stay with someone who drains him, because he is acutely aware of the value of his own life force. He seeks a partner who can meet him at that level of consciousness, not someone who wants to use him as an emotional or physical release valve. This elevates his standards to a point that seems impossible to the herd. It makes him a danger to the superficiality of modern dating. The psychological impact is immense. As you accumulate this energy, you begin a process of inner purification. Your repressed issues, your shadows, have nowhere to hide. The increased energy acts like a bright light in a dark room, showing all the dust and debris. It brings them to the surface to be dealt with. This is the internal trial, the dark night of the soul that all who walk this path must face. You must face your own demons, your anxieties, your traumas, not with a drained and distracted mind, but with the full force of your contained power. It is a difficult and often painful process, but it is the only way to achieve true self-mastery. You stop being a slave to your unconscious complexes. Jung taught that what we do not make conscious directs our life, and we call it fate. The retention of this energy is a powerful means of making the unconscious conscious. It forces a confrontation with the hidden parts of yourself. Your dreams become more vivid and meaningful. Your intuition sharpens to a razor's edge. You develop a kind of X-ray vision for social dynamics. You see the hidden motivations, the insecurities disguised as arrogance, the desperation behind the smiles. You hear what is not being said. This clarity is another reason you are feared. People are comfortable in their masks, in their personas. The persona is the social face they present to the world, often hiding a chaotic inner reality. The man with this level of perception sees right through the performance. His gaze is uncomfortable because it is a gaze of truth. Society functions on a web of convenient lies and unspoken agreements. The man who is internally silent and powerful has no need for these lies. He becomes an agent of a reality that most people are desperately trying to avoid. He is a threat to the collective illusion, a walking, breathing dose of truth. Think of the archetypal figures of power in history and myth: the lone wolf, the stoic king, the master artisan, the focused warrior. Their power is never scattered. It is focused, contained, and directed with absolute purpose. This is the state that retaining your life force allows you to access. You stop being a boy, constantly seeking permission and pleasure from the outside world, and you begin the process of becoming a man, a self-governed sovereign being who is the center of his own universe, not a satellite orbiting the whims of others. The fear then is a fear of sovereignty. Society does not want a world of kings, it wants a world of pawns. Kings are hard to control. Pawns, especially those distracted by their base urges and a constant need for external validation, are easily sacrificed. So when you choose this path, understand what you are choosing. You are not just choosing a lifestyle, you are choosing a side in a silent war. You are choosing to step outside the plantation of the mind. You are choosing to reclaim the most fundamental energy you possess. You are choosing to become a creator instead of a consumer. The initial stages will be lonely. You will feel like an alien as you watch others engage in the frantic, draining rituals of modern life. This loneliness is a sacred space. It is not a punishment, but a requirement. It is the workshop where you are rebuilding yourself, away from the prying eyes and weakening influences of the world. In that quiet, you will find your true will. Not the borrowed desires fed to you by culture, not the impulses programmed into you by biology, but your own deep purpose. Your psychic energy, no longer wasted, will be the fuel to pursue that purpose with a power that will shock you and everyone around you. This is the great secret, hidden in plain sight. Your sexual energy is your creative energy. It is the power to generate life, not just physically in a child, but metaphysically in your own existence, in your work, in your art, in your legacy. To waste it is to remain a ghost of the man you could be. So look at the world around you and ask yourself, is this a world that wants me to be powerful, or one that wants me to be docile and complacent? Does it want me to be a lion or a sheep? The answer is obvious. The fear is real because the power is real. Your choice is simple, but it is not easy. Continue to be a battery for a system that drains you and discards you, or become a self-contained power source, a star instead of a planet. The world fears a man who no longer needs it, and that man can be you. This is the beginning of true freedom. Not a freedom given to you by a government or a corporation, but one claimed from the very core of your being. It starts with a simple yet world-altering act of self-control. It starts when you decide once and for all to retain your power.